Hoje eu vou trazer para vocês a primeira entrevista com uma ex-agente consular da história da internet brasileira. Vai ser uma entrevista que eu tô querendo fazer há bastante tempo e pela parceria que a minha empresa, a Moove Vistos, tem com o time de ex-agentes consulares, ela finalmente se tornou possível, então tô muito empolgado, eu espero que vocês gostem. A gente vai conseguir falar um pouquinho sobre aqueles principais mitos ou dúvidas que os brasileiros têm a respeito de entrevistas de vistos americanos feitas no Brasil. Então, se você não me conhece, eu sou o Cris, eu sou o dono do canal Missão América, mas eu também sou fundador da empresa Moove Vistos, a principal empresa de vistos americanos do Brasil. Nós ajudamos pessoas a virem passear, estudar e fazer intercâmbio nos Estados Unidos. Nós somos também a primeira empresa do mundo a lançar uma inteligência artificial focada em ajudar as pessoas na preparação para vistos americanos e também para intercâmbios. Então, é uma revolução bem grande. Mas agora nós somos, isso me deixa muito orgulhoso de falar, a primeira empresa a fazer uma parceria com um time de ex-agentes consulares que juntos já fizeram mais de 300 mil entrevistas de vistos pelo mundo inteiro. Agora eu vou apresentar para vocês a líder desse time de ex-agentes consulares que tem ajudado a gente agora a preparar os nossos clientes. É com muito orgulho que eu apresento para vocês a Yvette. Thank you for talking to me. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Chris, for having me, and thank you for introducing the audience. My name is Yvette Bansal. I'm the founder of UDETI Visa. I'm a former U.S. consular officer, and we have a team at UDETI Visa of an additional 4 consular officers. We've worked all over the world, including Latin America, and we help Brazilian applicants strategize for their visa interviews, as well as doing mock interviews and just answering their overall consular processing questions. So happy to be here.
I want to start with a question that everyone asks, which is, what are you usually typing while the applicant is speaking, or sometimes during those silent moments?
Well, for every case, we're required to write case notes. We try to be as detailed as possible with the short amount of time that we have. So we're writing things that either strengthen your case, why we're issuing the visa, or why we're not issuing the visa, or anything else that we notice. In case you come back, we want to have helpful notes for the next visa officer to review so that you have some case history based on our observations and what we're noticing both on your DS-160 and your interview.
Is this an information that the applicant, in case they are denied, that they could have access to try to understand what happened and why they were denied?
Getting access to that information would be incredibly difficult, not something that is possible for the average person. You'd have to be a large company, hire a lawyer, and make a request. So I would say for the average person, you will never know what the consular officer is typing. And I'll add that it's very dependent on the visa class. So every single visa class has its own policies and different parameters for approvability. We have to check certain things for an F1 student, like funding, academics, the ability to be ready for that program. Do we think that they're going to pass that program? An H-1B visa or an O visa, they're different parameters. The officer is trying to communicate in those notes whether or not the applicant hits the parameters of the specific visa class that they're being adjudicated for.
There's also another moment in the interview that happens very often is that the visa officer just stand up, goes to some room in the back and just stay there for like 3-5 minutes and then they just come back. What happens in that moment? What are they doing?
Sometimes if you have a prior refusal, for example, we need to communicate to our managers that we intend to issue the visa. That's one thing that could be happening. Something complicated or odd about your case could be going on. Consular officers also change locations every couple of years, so officer may not understand something specific and they may need to talk to their manager to get some clarity on whether or not this individual is approvable. You could have said something that is slightly complicated and we want a second opinion. So we could be asking our manager for that second opinion. There could be a lot of reasons why we would want to double check before we make a final decision on your case.
O vídeo já vai continuar, mas eu tenho uma notícia muito importante. Não sei se você sabe, mas fevereiro é o mês de aniversário da Moove Vistos, o que significa que tem presente pra você. No dia 11 de fevereiro, no YouTube da Moove Vistos, serão divulgados 3 vencedores que vão ganhar 50% de desconto nas nossas assessorias Premium. O que você precisa fazer para isso? Você precisa primeiro ir lá lá no nosso Instagram, vão ter 3 posts. O primeiro para quem quer fazer cursos universitários, seja nos Estados Unidos ou no Canadá. O segundo para quem quer estudar inglês nos Estados Unidos, Canadá ou Dubai. E o terceiro para quem quer passear ou fazer negócios nos Estados Unidos e também passear no Canadá. As regras são bem simples, estão descritas lá no post. Você vai ter que marcar umas pessoas e seguir as nossas contas da Moove. Está ao vivo na live do dia 11 de fevereiro no nosso YouTube, às 20 horas, horário de Brasília. De verdade, essa é uma oportunidade única e se eu fosse você, eu não perderia 50% de desconto em qualquer uma dessas assessorias premium, beleza? O link do Instagram tá aqui na descrição, é só você clicar, encontrar os posts lá e seguir o regulamento, beleza? Vejo vocês na live do dia 11. Abraço!
And let's say someone already has a history with America, have been in the country before. Do you, while you're doing the interview, have access to their history in America? Can you see what they did before and if they had any issue in the country? Or is this something you have to leave to try to figure out talking and calling other people?
No, that's not a reason that most officers step away from the window. Their systems enable them to see the length of time that somebody has been in the country. They don't have every detail about you, but if you've ever been arrested, that is information that the consular officer can see. However, if the records show something confusing, maybe you were arrested, maybe you were turned around at the border, so that's something that we can also see if you try to enter the United States and there was some issue as you entered the United States. There could be information that we would try to get clarity on from a senior of ours, but we're not calling Washington, D.C. or doing anything like that. And we're not trying to scare applicants when we move away from the window. It's not a mental tactic by any means. There could be, though, information where we need additional guidance based on what we are seeing. So it's always good to be truthful about the dates that you were in the United States and be prepared to discuss what you were doing in the United States. That's not something that you want to lie about, especially now with more and more technology. The accuracy of what consular officers can see in terms of entry and exit records, it's just going to get more precise. You know, back in the 90s, people can get away with a lot of stuff. It's not going to be the case anymore.
Eu falo isso pra vocês o tempo inteiro, como é importante falar a verdade. A gente já viu na Moove clientes aprovados com todo tipo de caso possível e imaginário, mas a coisa que é mais difícil de se reverter é quando a pessoa tem um histórico de mentira, porque você prejudica o teu relacionamento com os Estados Unidos pra sempre. Eles vão pensar sempre que se você mentiu uma vez, você pode mentir de novo, e como que eles podem acreditar que o que você está falando é verdade? Então, sempre falem a verdade em literalmente tudo. Se vocês conhecem pessoas que moram nos Estados Unidos, se vocês já estiveram no país, o que vocês fizeram lá. As pessoas às vezes ficam com medo porque pode ser alguma coisa que atrapalhe o perfil delas, mas acredite, até pelo que ela falou aqui agora, se você não falar a verdade, isso pode te atrapalhar muito mais. É melhor você encarar a verdade de frente e explicar da melhor forma que você puder, óbvio, se preparando anteriormente, do que você tentar esconder uma coisa que, cara, a gente tá falando do governo americano, eles têm acesso a informações que a gente nem imagina, então a chance deles terem acesso e verem que você tá mentindo é muito grande, então fale sempre a verdade.
I want to add something about complex histories. If you have a complex history, you stayed in the United States a little bit longer, and hopefully you were using your visa appropriately, I would recommend contacting the Moove Vistos team to see if it's a complicated enough situation to be referred to us to help you communicate what's going on to the consular officer. So if you're worried about something, and especially if you've been arrested, I don't suggest you try to explain that on your own to the consular officers. There is some high stakes visa situations like long stays in the US or arrests, or if you've been turned around at the border, that you absolutely need some professional help to pass. Otherwise you may end up, not getting your visa and wasting a lot of time and not being able to go back to the United States. So.
Para mim, essa é uma das novidades que mais me deixa orgulhoso, que é saber que a gente está podendo trazer agora para os clientes da Moove a possibilidade de, se você quiser contratar um plano Plus da nossa assessoria Premium, que você possa ter incluído nesse plano Plus uma reunião de 50 minutos com um ex-agente consular no contexto da mentoria, em que você vai poder tirar dúvidas, praticar o que você quiser, conversar e incorporar isso dentro da sua preparação e da sua estratégia. Então, uma exclusividade Moove, o que você precisa fazer? Clica no link aqui na descrição, fala com o nosso time, explica seu projeto, explica sua dúvida, fala que você quer o plano Plus, nosso time vai poder te ajudar e você vai ter literalmente o que já era a melhor preparação para uma aplicação de vistos da história do Brasil, o nosso método, como sempre foi, mas agora isso foi elevado a um patamar completamente incomparável para aqueles clientes que escolherem por esse caminho. Então, mais uma coisa que a gente está trazendo para vocês, aproveitem, falem com o nosso time aqui, preenche o formulário no link da descrição e a gente consegue te guiar, tá bom? You can answer that question, which is about what the system shows the visa officer, what kind of highlights they have available on their screen once they are going to a visa interview. You already said about if they were arrested in America, what else can they see that would just pop up as a high-risk case?
If they've ever been arrested or fingerprinted, shows up. Otherwise, they can look into how long you were in the United States. If you have any sort of record, even in your own country, I would definitely be honest about that. It is something that the officer can potentially have access to. So security information. So some certain security flags, certain security information the consular may have.
Yvette, how much do behavior and body language influence the final decision?
I think it really influences the final decision. If you're giving off vibes like you're not trustworthy for some reason, or you're overly nervous, the consular officer, whether consciously or unconsciously, is going to be on edge. Is this fair? This isn't always fair, because sometimes the nicest of people can be throwing off weird vibes, but the consular officer is human and he is going to rely on every single data point that they have. And I think especially if you're being evasive and you're not being forthcoming on top of sounding and looking nervous, that's going to communicate to anybody that you're talking to that you're not telling the truth, even if you are telling the truth. So definitely be mindful of body language and cultural norms. We, as American officers, expect you to be direct, and if you're not direct, both in body language and in speech, it can impact your interview.
E, pessoal, lembrem que eu falo isso sempre no meu canal do YouTube, no canal da minha empresa também, a importância de você falar a verdade. Porque se você está mentindo, você está nervoso, está preocupado, será que ele sabe? Será que eles vão pegar? Mas se você está falando a verdade, você já entra num status de calma muito maior. Então olha só o que ela está falando, sobre a importância de vocês estarem calmos. Então é isso, é uma sequência de coisas, não existe uma ação mágica que vocês possam tomar para poder fazer o visto ser aprovado, mas definitivamente vocês já ouviram da boca dela várias vezes aqui, eu já falei isso 300 vezes também, falar a verdade é a base central de tudo, e isso só vai ter benefícios para vocês. There's a myth in Brazil that some people believe, and I want to understand if it is real or not. So is it true that some people walk into the interview already approved or denied, and that nothing they can say could change that outcome?
I think that because the interview is so fast, you may assume that the decision is pre-made, but it absolutely never is. The consular officer will look at the DS-160. We're trained to look at certain sections for certain visa classes that will catch our eye. Some sections like prior travel, what you're currently doing for work, your salary, your point of contact. Those are things we noticed immediately, including your age. So we're trained to look at things very quickly, and we're trained to put things in mental buckets. So we see the same type of applicant over and over. And if we see somebody say, talk in a rehearsed script, and we feel like this person is not going to give us any more information or is not going to be very direct or real with us, then based on their DS-160 and the information we have, we can make a very quick decision. Brazil is a very high visa issuance post. I mean, they issue and deny a ton of visas. So that means there's a lot of pressure on that consular officer to go very quickly. So we don't have that predetermined, but we can make a decision very quickly, which is why it can seem like we have a predetermined way of adjudicating.
And for our last question, what was the strangest or the most unexpected thing you have ever seen in an interview?
I see a lot of very strange things in an interview. One was an H-1B, so somebody who was coming to the United States for temporary work. He had prior arrest in the United States for suspicion of prostitution, and he was a male. And I can see what the arrest was, more or less. And so the process for seeing an arrest is we ask for court documents. Now, an H-1B visa can only be revoked basis a ineligibility, and we won't go into ineligibilities now, but it's different than an F visa or a B visa that can be quickly denied based on the policy of 214B. This visa would need an ineligibility, and just a simple arrest without a conviction is not a basis for an ineligibility, meaning this person was qualified. But I have to do my due diligence and ask him, what happened? Why were you arrested for suspected prostitution? He was like, I don't know. I was hanging out at a Walmart parking lot because he was on a former H-1B and this was his renewal. And the funny thing was that he's actually a really good looking guy. So I was just very suspect. The whole situation was very suspect, but he was never charged. He was let go. There was no ineligibility, and I ultimately took his court documents and took his interview and issued his visa, but the whole thing was just very strange. And we get a lot of really strange arrests. Like, I would say very rich people sometimes would be arrested for stealing like a tie or a belt from Target. So it's just, that's very strange sometimes. And we'd have to ask them these questions. Again, not in an eligibility, but sometimes they would do it on a tourist visa. So somebody who is very well off, use their visa well, would have an arrest for stealing a belt from Target. And now it's up to me as a visa officer to make a decision. Do I want to issue another tourist visa to somebody who was arrested, but then it's just a belt from Target? So I have to question them about it. And usually they're very embarrassed. And, sometimes I think that maybe that there's some people who really enjoy stealing small things from department stores, that it's not about money. So I started noticing a weird pattern. But yes, I've seen a lot of weird things at the visa window, and those are just a couple of them.
Wow, that's weird. So yeah, people, please don't lie, don't commit crimes. Your life is going to be easier, and their life is going to be easier as well. So yeah.
Please, the weird arrest at the Walmart parking lot, I still don't really have an answer for you. And maybe it was just a misunderstanding, okay? Maybe that's something that couldn't be controlled, police just suspicious, maybe you were at the wrong place at the wrong time. But there's no excuse for petty crimes while you're on a tourist visa. Like, there is just no reason to risk drinking and driving, smoking in states that, maybe it's not legal to do so. These small petty things on your tourist visa or student visa or any type of visa, they cause you to be stuck at that visa window, and it takes one officer to say, hey, I'm not going to issue another B visa to somebody who's stealing. I don't care if it's a belt, I don't care if it's an apple. And a lot of department stores in the United States, they have a zero tolerance policy. Like, they will arrest you once you get your fingerprinted. You'll be asked at the visa window. You'll be asked when you enter the United States. It is not something that you want to be haunted by. And it's incredibly embarrassing for people who are otherwise law-abiding to be haunted by this forever. Like, I've seen it. They're so embarrassed. So yeah, don't do it.
Yvette, thank you so much for your help here. I appreciate your time, and I hope that helped people.
Yeah, I hope that helps everyone. Thank you so much for having me.
Sure. Pessoal, entrevista incrível que eu trouxe para vocês, mas lembre, essa aqui é só a primeira. Vai ter mais no canal da minha empresa e vão ter outras entrevistas aqui no meu canal também. Então, se você gosta desse tipo de conteúdo, quer saber sobre o Visto Americano e descobrir informações que você não vai encontrar em outro canal, já aproveita e se inscreve aqui. Lembre, vocês podem contratar a Moove num plano adicional em que vocês vão ter a ajuda de um ex-agente consular. Isso daqui é maravilhoso e é uma coisa da qual eu me orgulho muito de trazer. Se você eventualmente está num processo de Green Card, por exemplo, você também tem a possibilidade de ter ajuda deles. Você pode clicar no link, falar com o nosso time. Acho que vale a pena, todo cuidado é pouco, é um projeto tão importante, você já chegou até o dia da entrevista, por que você não se prepara um pouco mais e conta com a ajuda deles em relação a isso, tá bom? Se vocês gostaram desse tipo de vídeo e quiserem que eu faça uma outra entrevista no mês que vem, comentem aqui, Cris, gostei, quero mais, e falem, por favor, que tipo de perguntas que vocês têm, que dúvidas que vocês têm que eu não tirei aqui, que a gente possa trazer de novo para ela, tá bom? Então é isso, pessoal. Eu vou deixar aqui na tela, inclusive, 2 vídeos. Um deles é onde eu falo sobre como que você pode descobrir se vir para os Estados Unidos é um projeto interessante para você e para sua família, para que você não cometa erros e depois se arrependa. E no outro vídeo eu vou deixar aqui por que eu resolvi sair de Orlando e vir morar no interior dos Estados Unidos. Acho que vai ser um vídeo legal, você vai se interessar também, tá bom? Então é isso, pessoal. Aqui é o Cris. Um grande abraço para vocês. Até mais.